Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
It's the largest charter school system in San Diego County, and tonight teachers working on high-tech high campuses are demanding action on their pending contract. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Almost 700 teachers and classified workers unionized last year. Contract negotiations with the administration have dragged on for 10 months now. And right now, high-tech high teachers are being joined by students and their families in a rally outside the original charter school in Point Loma. And that is where KPBS education reporter MG Perez joins us now live. MG.
Maya, we are at the Jacobs High-Tech High School here in Point Loma, where several dozen parents and their students joined teachers in the rally this afternoon. They are here because they are upset about the contract negotiations dragging on. Negotiations started in January, and at this hour, representatives from the student union, or from the teachers union that is, are meeting with members of the Charter Management Organization, otherwise known as the CMO. That's another term for school administration. They are trying to work through the difficulty of the gridlock. The issue is not about money. In fact, the financial part of this package has been decided, with teachers receiving a 2% increase annually on their paychecks. The problem is more about power. We spoke with a parent, a teacher, and also a student about what the problem is. I'm going to let you hear the explanation in the words of a 7-year-old student.
There's no due process here, so teachers are just getting dismissed, and the CEO is the one who's deciding who gets to stay and who doesn't. I don't think that's okay. There needs to be a group of people who decides who stays and who doesn't. Like, there needs to be a due process.
It's causing a lot of stress on the teachers, to the point where many teachers are leaving to try to find employment elsewhere where there's more stability and less fear involved in the culture of the school.
Who loses in this?
Well, definitely the students, and that's why I'm here.
We really hoped and expected that we would be done by the summer. The CMO really communicated that they wanted it to be fast, but it's really felt like they've dragged it on and on and on. And so I really hope we can bring this to a conclusion. It's been really disheartening.
As that young man said, it is a problem with due process. We did get a statement from the CEO of High-Tech High. He said, "We fiercely, unapologetically defend our unique approach to learning and how we organize our operations to make it happen. Our independence from outside control has been central to our ability to deliver on what the community expects from us and what we expect from ourselves." That's a statement from the CEO. Negotiations continue at this hour, Maya.
MG, thank you for bringing us all those voices. But with the bargaining session underway right now, can we expect some kind of agreement tonight?
Well, we'll have to wait to see, of course, but I will tell you that Anthony Milliken, who is the public information officer with High-Tech High, says that the CMO, the charter management officers, remain hopeful that they will have some kind of agreement, possibly by the end of the evening.
Thank you so much for that report, MG Perez. A market in Mountain View is at the center of an investigation that led to the indictment of 22 people for drug trafficking and for fraud. Now, as KPBS reporter Alexander Nguyen tells us, neighbors are hoping for changes.
Mike's Market's a problem.
Pastor Steve Marone's Bridge Church is right across the street from Mike's Market. He's only been there a year and a half, but says that's a common theme he's heard from residents.
We were literally hearing all of the community members to the north of Mike's Market, east, west, south. We would kind of hit all the directions.
Violent crimes and drug activities have plagued this community for years. Police say at the center of it all is Mike's Market. Clerks allegedly worked with gang members to sell drugs, which were paid for through EBT, money that comes from a federal food assistance program.
What became clear was this business was not a neighborhood grocery store at all. Instead, it was a place where employees were committing massive fraud, stealing nearly $2 million in food assistance benefits for themselves.
22 people were indicted on 221 felony charges, ranging from attempted murder to gun charges, robbery, and drug sales. After a rash of shootings around Mike's Market, Pastor Marone held a community meeting with the mayor, the chief of police, and San Diego City Council President Sean Elo Rivera. What they heard was that
Mike's Market was definitely a place that would harbor a lot of certain behaviors, but also it would be a place for, not only crime, but a place that perpetuated fear, I guess, in the community.
The market is in Elo Rivera's council district.
Everybody in every neighborhood deserves to have businesses that respect them, that provide for the needs of the community, and deserve to feel safe in their neighborhoods.
Despite the arrests, Pastor Marone says the community is still on edge. Mike's Market is still open for now, but
to close it down would be a strong message to the community.
Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
California has launched a new online portal to help sexual assault survivors track their evidence kits. The state also hired an evidence outreach coordinator to facilitate between law enforcement, medical facilities, and other organizations to process these kits. California's Attorney General says this should help clear the backlog and help survivors access information.
Victims and survivors should never be left in the dark. These kits should not only be processed timely, survivors deserve to know the status of their kits.
Individuals can access their information by entering their kit number and the agency investigating the assault. As a protective measure, the portal only allows access to status and location data. It also limits the number of times a person can enter the system each day. The midterm elections are 1 week away, and President Biden is making part of his final push to get out the vote here in San Diego. Details have not yet been released, but we do know that the president will attend a campaign event with Democratic Congressman Mike Levin on Thursday. Levin has represented the 49th District straddling San Diego County and Orange County since 2018. He is in a tightly contested race with Republican and former San Juan Capistrano Mayor Brian Marriott. There are nearly 2 million registered voters in San Diego County, and early voting is well underway. As KPBS reporter Melissa May tells us, some poll workers are still needed.
Last year, beginning in October, San Diego County implemented the Vote Center model. Instead of having one day to vote at a specific location, voters can now go to any of the 218 vote centers over the course of 10 days. So how does this affect the people who help these places run?
Now they're required to work multiple days. So they switched from being a one-day volunteer to now a temporary county employee. So they go through the hiring process of the county.
The county uses a software called NeoGov, and the application process is completely online too.
A critical part of using the county's hiring process is to accurately maintain this information and get up-to-date address information so we can mail checks timely. And do payroll timely.
Cynthia Paz is the registrar of voters for San Diego County.
The training is now 2 days long, where under the traditional polling place model, it was 4 hours long. So now it's a full 2 days of training, plus a half day of setup and a half day of breakdown.
Poll workers' pay changed too.
Now you're a temporary employee of the County of San Diego, receiving an hourly wage.
Thousands of poll workers are now required to work between 1 and 2 weeks. According to Paz, there was no problem recruiting workers for this upcoming election, except for certain bilingual poll workers.
We always struggle with those that speak Chinese, Vietnamese, Japanese, Korean.
Positions are still available for bilingual poll workers. Go to sdvote.com and click on the poll worker tab. Melissa May, KPBS News.
One of the lower profile races on the ballot this November is the one for Assessor, Recorder, and County Clerk. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says it's 3 offices in one.
The county assessor has the job of determining how much a property is worth and how much of that value can be taxed under state law. The recorder and clerk parts of the job involve issuing birth, death, and marriage certificates and registering business names. Current assessor Ernie Dronenberg is retiring after 12 years on the job.
I read every customer feedback card that comes into our office.
Jordan Marks is the chief deputy assessor running to replace his boss. He says the office needs someone with experience who will put the customer first.
When I got to the office and they said, we need a new website. Well, we budgeted for it. We planned for it. Minus the slowdown from the pandemic, we got there for the taxpayers because that is great customer service. Hearing what you could do better and delivering that.
I've been an executive most of my life.
Barbara Bree is Mark's opponent. She's a longtime entrepreneur who served on the San Diego City Council for 4 years before running unsuccessfully for mayor. Bree says the office needs to update not just its website, but also how it gets information from cities when they permit new construction and a property has to be reassessed.
And each city communicates with the assessor's office in a different way, and in some cases it was the U.S. mail. And that's not acceptable in the 21st century. What if a piece of paper gets lost?
Bree is a Democrat while Marks is a Republican, but the office is officially nonpartisan. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
And you can find more election coverage at kpbs.org. The KPBS Voter Hub is where you'll find stories explaining the key races and an in-depth ballot guide as well. You can get there by clicking the link on our homepage. The World Health Organization says monkeypox is still a public health emergency of international concern. A WHO committee says the outbreak persists because of gaps in research and underreporting of cases, as well as unequal access to vaccines and treatments. Experts note progress has been made in the fight against the virus, but warn countries could face additional surges of cases. Meanwhile, here in San Diego County, case numbers have been dropping with only 3 new cases reported in the last week. After an initial shortage, vaccines are now available to those who need them. Pfizer is set to submit data to the FDA after what it calls a promising trial for its RSV vaccine. If approved, we could be seeing the inoculation in young patients by next winter. Mike Valerio has the latest.
Looking back at pictures, you could see it in her eyes that they were just like puffy. I was in panic mode. It was terrifying.
As pediatric hospitals across the country still see an above-average number of hospitalizations due to respiratory syncytial virus, or RSV, Pfizer is announcing the end of its trial for the RSV vaccine and says it's ready to submit its data to the FDA by the end of the year. The news welcomed by doctors.
This actually is very significant, and especially because we are seeing right now the struggles that we can have as a community.
In the Pfizer study, not yet published or peer-reviewed, 7,400 pregnant participants were given a single shot of the vaccine during the late 2nd to 3rd trimester of their pregnancies. Pfizer says the vaccine was 82% effective at preventing severe illness in babies and 70% effective in preventing severe RSV in infants for 6 months.
In the RSV vaccine, that would be a different category of vaccines. That would be one that will be protecting the mom and, most importantly, the newborn.
Children's hospitals remain filled with virus patients due to RSV. Brittany Rivera's 6-year-old son had to wait hours just to see a doctor.
Just having him not be able to actually get good rest is the worst because he's so tired and he can't sleep very well.
Pfizer also saying that they're making headway with positive results in an ongoing trial of the same vaccine for older adults. Mike Valerio, KPBS News.
California's drought is causing water shortages and skyrocketing prices. State senators have raised the alarm about potential drought profiteering. And as Renee Marsh reports, they are asking the Department of Justice to investigate the issue.
Miles of brittle uprooted almond trees lay flat across dry farmland in Coalinga, California. Drought, tightening water restrictions, and now skyrocketing water prices have forced farmers to sacrifice their crops. This is what a thirsty city on the verge of running out of water looks like.
We can't continue this. It's not sustainable for our community.
City Councilman Adam Adkison says Coalinga was set to run out of water by mid to late November and had to turn to the open market to buy water to make up the shortfall. The city was short about 600 acre-feet of water. That's the equivalent of about 300 Olympic-sized pools. Last week, Coalinga finalized the water purchase from a California public irrigation district. The price tag for one of life's most basic necessities, roughly $1.1 million. Adkison says the same amount of water used to cost the city $114,000.
I was just floored. I could not believe that they could sell water at that price, but that was actually a cheap rate. That's the cheapest rate we found.
The index that tracks water transactions in California shows the price of water has gone from just over $200 in 2019 to more than $1,000 today for the amount of water it would take to fill half of an Olympic-sized pool.
People are making money off of less water availability, and that's hurting real people, real farmers, and real communities. Hi, everybody.
California State Senator Melissa Hurtado and a bipartisan group of California legislators in a letter sent this August urged the U.S. Justice Department to investigate, quote, potential drought profiteering. Hurtado suspects there could be water price gouging in drought-stricken western states.
I'm not a farmer, and this keeps me up at night.
CNN was there as Hurtado met with a living room full of farmers raising alarm about high water prices.
How can we work out a plan to where it's not going to bankrupt us?
Dee Dee Gruber and her husband Tom grow 11 different crops. They estimate the water needed to grow one of their crops, walnuts, will cost $40,000.
It would have cost us more in water than what we're going to get for our walnuts.
The Justice Department, in an email to Hurtado this month, said her complaint was forwarded to the appropriate legal staff for further review. The agency declined comment to CNN on what, if any, investigative actions it might take as this dwindling resource becomes more expensive to come by.
We're a very poor community. These people out here cannot afford a 1,000% increase in their water bills.
Lots of changes coming up over the next 24 to 36 hours. At the short term, it's all about the wind. We'll also see some cooler air moving in and moisture. That's right, some showers, even some snow into the higher terrain. All right, wind advisories are up here throughout the late evening and into the overnight. You can see those highlighted in the purple shading. Some of those showers approaching with a front that's going to be sagging its way northwest to southeast over time around Oceanside. I do think many spots will stay dry for tonight. As we drop down to 59 in Chula Vista, 54 Borrego Springs, Mount Laguna down to 41. But you can see already some healthy soaking rains. We could use that into Northern California. The Sierra is going to see the snow. Winter storm warnings are up around Donner Pass along Interstate 80. And we'll see that band of precipitation sag its way off toward the south and the east as we go into Wednesday morning. Look at that big dip in the jet stream being carved out. And yes, we're going to be talking about some rain moving in. I'll step out of the way so you can see the big picture. The first rain, measurable rain potentially since the 23rd of October, right around 0.03 of an inch on that day. So again, keep the umbrella handy. Temperature-wise, mid-60s from San Diego to Chula Vista, Borrego Springs at 71. And then we're going to be talking about the cooler advancing in. Snow levels still up at around 6,000 feet throughout Wednesday, but those will drop potentially under 4,500 feet as we go into Thursday. So again, snow over the highest terrain. Yes, that's going to be a possibility. At the coast, looking at some of the wet weather, higher amounts will be again inland as we work our way into Thursday. Some showers around again Thursday, especially during the morning. I think we'll dry things out later in the weekend. And temperatures will start to climb into the mountainous terrain. As I mentioned, snow levels will be falling Wednesday night to Thursday, and then we'll turn things around into the weekend with some sunshine and some warmer air. We'll have to watch potentially. We're getting pretty close to a frostier toward some of the high deserts, but otherwise we're going to be warming things up heading into the weekend. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Pavic. No one should have to die alone. That is the idea behind a program that provides end-of-life comfort. KPBS health reporter Matt Hoffman has more on the return of 11th hour program at Sharp Grossmont Hospital.
He's been very lethargic for the past week or two and hasn't been making any progress to get better.
There's no better.
Yeah.
These are the kinds of discussions Dr. Gregory Thomas has every day. He's an inpatient palliative care physician at Sharp Grossmont Hospital in La Mesa. He's going over what an end-of-life care plan might look like with the hospital's clinical chaplain, Andrew Griffiths.
They identify as Christian. I need to find out what their denomination is.
Okay.
But I think they would be open to having spiritual care involved.
His family in town too?
Griffiths and a team of volunteers are standing by, ready to comfort patients in their final hours who otherwise would have no one else. It's called the 11th Hour Program.
The mission statement is, no one dies alone.
Griffiths says it's designed to give companionship to those at their most vulnerable.
When I think about death as a living person, I work around it 8 hours a day, 4 days a week, but I'm still scared of death. And I would be really scared to be around not only death, but be around death alone.
Any hospital staff member can refer a patient to the 11th Hour Program. Griffiths says when they get that call, they know that the patient is not going to get better, and they're typically on what they call a comfort care plan.
They're kind of the end of their illness journey. They've gone through fighting, they've gone through the various levels of what an illness will do to a body, and then they are towards the end and they're actively dying, means they're nonverbal, they're unable to speak. In general, they're usually older population.
Griffiths and his team try to get as much information about a patient as possible before spending time with them, like finding out their favorite music or books.
Maybe if they love the Beatles, playing a Beatles song. If they love poetry, maybe reading some poetry, showing that the act of I see you, I'm with you, I'm here.
The 11th Hour Program is just starting back up again after a nearly 3-year hiatus due to COVID-19.
That was a bummer for us because I really think that would have been a good time for our program.
Tamara DiBelso is an 11th Hour volunteer and also a physical therapist at Sharp Grossmont Hospital. She's been with the program since 2015. She says it was tough not having it around during the deadly pandemic.
It was probably when we were most needed, it seems. Because lots of patients had to die by themselves. Their families couldn't come into the hospital, and the nurses were, overwhelmed with lots of things happening at the time. So I wish we could have been there, but that wasn't an option. So now we're back, which is good.
The program is looking for more volunteers to help reach a goal of having someone available 24 hours a day. Majority of the patients are not able to speak, but they can usually hear.
I hold their hand and just talk to them and just tell them that, it's okay and that they're safe and that they're in a good environment and that they're being taken care of.
DiBelso didn't think twice when she was asked to return to the program. For her, this work is personal.
It sort of resonated with me because I've been present at the deaths of 3 of my family members. And those were different kinds of experiences, but the common theme was that we had so many family members around at the time. And for someone to go pass on their own without anyone just didn't seem right to me. But I think it's more of a comfort to the patient as well as yourself, just that you can provide someone maybe a few moments of peace.
Make it feel more comfortable.
Griffiths says over the last couple of years, he saw heartwarming scenes where nurses and therapists took time out of busy schedules to spend time with those dying alone. He jumped at the opportunity to help restart the 11th Hour Program, and he's hoping more volunteers will help it thrive.
I want to live in a world where there's a little bit of hope, and so I think this program is one step towards that, of bringing hope back into the world.
The 11th Hour Program falls under the hospital's spiritual care division, but volunteers don't have to be religious to get involved. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead, is being celebrated across San Diego County. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer shows us how people are honoring their loved ones and culture through photos, flowers, music, and altars.
In Old Town San Diego, people came from far and wide to get a feel for a large-scale celebration of Dia de los Muertos. It's a holiday that honors ancestors and loved ones through altars or ofrendas. And there's lots of marigolds, photos of family members, painted skulls, and skeletons. For Chula Vista's Melissa Rocha, she was honoring her ancestors through music and dance.
The outfit is actually ballet folklorico, which is mainly Mexican dance, and the face painting is definitely for Dia de los Muertos.
Dia de los Muertos traces its earliest roots to the Aztec people, and it's officially celebrated on November 1st and 2nd. Tanya Vargas and her mother drove all the way from Escondido just to see the Old Town altars in person.
Even though we embrace it at home, it's nice to have a place where we can come gather and embrace those traditions, those Mexican traditions for us. And it means that we are closer to our loved ones.
Whether here in San Diego or across the border in Mexico, many people celebrate in the same ways.
It's like taking a piece from where you were from and bringing it here to where you now live.
With the main focus being on family.
It means a lot to me because we get to remember, the people who are closest to us. And it's nice to see other people learn about our culture, respectfully. And that feels really good.
While many families celebrate the holiday at home, the public Dia de los Muertos celebrations continue in Old Town Wednesday, with other events scheduled throughout the county. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.